What do you look like?
I'm called the Banana, and I look really good.
He's a skydiver, so he's got a lot of nerve. He's into motorcycling. He's also a fine photographer. Say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on and say hello. Congratulations, Rodney.
Welcome to Mystery Sauce. Today's story takes place in 1978, where Rodney Alcala, a convicted serial killer, won a date on the dating game, hiding his dark past of murder and assault, found the audience in his date. So, let's get into the story. In the autumn of 1978, Rodney Alcala, a charming and attractive young man, made an appearance on the well-known TV game show called The Dating Game. His sharp wit and slightly edgy humor were a perfect match for the show's bold new format. Now, Alcala's charmed his way to victory on the episode, and he secured a date with the bachelorette Cheryl Bradshaw. However, she chose wisely not to go on the date, and at this point, Alcala had already committed the assault and murder of at least 5 women. Rodney James Alcala, who is he? He was born in 1943 in San Antonio, Texas. His family life took a turn when his father left him while Rodney was still young, leaving him to be raised by his mother along with his 2 sisters. The family relocated to Los Angeles when he was just 12 years old, and there he completed his high school education, graduating at the age of 17. Now, after high school, Alcala decided to pursue a military career and enlisted in the Army, where he worked as a clerk. His military service came to an end after 4 years following a nervous breakdown, leading to a medical discharge in 1964. This early in his life, the first red flags were raised. An Army psychiatrist identified Alcala as having an antisocial personality disorder. Now, following his discharge, Alcala moved back to Los Angeles to continue his studies. He attended UCLA, where he obtained a bachelor's degree of fine arts. It was during his time in college that Alcala developed a keen interest in photography, a hobby he would later exploit for insane purposes. The year following his college graduation marked Alcala's initial confrontation with the law. An observant bystander noticed him coaxing an 8-year-old girl into his vehicle and tracked him as he transported her to his residence. Now, once Alcala brought the girl inside, the vigilant individual alerted the authorities. By the time the police arrived, Alcala had rendered the girl unconscious, using a metal pipe, and he assaulted her. As the officers knocked, he made his escape through a window at the back, abandoning the young girl in a comatose state on the bed, encircled by a photography gear. Without the intervention of the passerby, the girl's survival would have been highly unlikely. Alcala then escapes to New York, assuming the alias John Berger. There he mingled with the elite of Manhattan and led a playboy existence while studying at New York University and participating in a film course under the tutelage of the renowned director Roman Polanski. Now, while in New York, he carried out his first documented murder. On June 12, 1971, he assaulted and killed a 23-year-old TWA flight attendant, Cornelia Criley, in her apartment on 83rd Street. It was speculated by the police that Alcala had gained the trust of the young woman by offering to assist her with her move into the apartment. At that time, her boyfriend, Leon Borston, was considered the prime suspect. However, Alcala didn't wait for the police to direct their suspicions towards him, and he fled to New Hampshire. Now, continue under the guise of John Berger, he secured a role as a counselor at a drama camp situated by Lake Sunapee. However, Alcala's cover was about to be blown due to a serendipitous event. While seeking refuge from a summer downpour in the local post office, 2 teenage campers came across a wanted poster featuring Rodney Alcala. They couldn't help but notice the uncanny resemblance between Alcala and their counselor, known to them as John Berger. Prompted by their observation, they alerted the authorities, leading to Alcala's apprehension. Now, following his arrest, Alcala was extradited to California to face charges for the abduction, sexual assault, and the brutal assault of an 8-year-old girl. Despite being convicted, the punishment he received was arguably insufficient for the gravity of his crimes. During that era, the legislative mindset in California was inclined towards rehab rather than incarceration for sex offenders. As a result of this perspective, Alcala was sentenced to a mere 34 months for a crime that inflicted irreversible sexual assault on his young victim. Now back in the streets, he was soon up to his old tricks again. In 1974, he kidnapped a 13-year-old girl. He drove her to an isolated spot near Bosla Chica State Beach, forced her to smoke marijuana, and then tried to violently assault her. The girl escaped and called the police. Alcala, still on parole for his previous attack on a minor, got another lenient sentence, just 2 years. And when he got out, Alcala charmed his parole officer into allowing him to visit relatives in New York. This was in the summer of 1977, the summer of Sam, when Dave Berkowitz was creating havoc on the streets of New York City. Alcala added his own brand of mayhem to the mix. During the summer he spent in New York, Ellen Hoover, 23 years old, a Manhattan socialite, and Harris disappeared. Ellen's daughter of Herman Hoover, the owner of a legendary Hollywood nightclub, Soros, was last seen on July 15, 1977. Her date book for that day showed that she had an appointment to meet with John Berger. Ellen Hoover's family hired a private investigator to find her and also took out an ad in the New York Times asking for information about the mysterious John Berger. But by this time, Alcala had already returned to LA and was working as a typesetter for the Los Angeles Times and using his own name again. Now, it wasn't until a year later that the FBI got an anonymous tip reminding them that someone by the name of John Berger had been arrested in New Hampshire a few years before. Now, following this lead, the FBI finally tracked Alcala to Los Angeles, and he readily admitted to knowing Ellen, but insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. Without evidence to the contrary, investigators had no opinion but to let him go. Ellen Hoover's body would eventually be found on the Rockefeller Estate in North Tarrytown, New York, just yards from where Alcala had once held a photo shoot with an aspiring model. Now back in Los Angeles, Rodney wasn't the only predator on the streets. This was at the height of the Hillside Strangler murderers, and Alcala's next murder was at first blamed on the Strangler. Jill Barcombe was an 18-year-old runaway, originally from Brooklyn, New York. At barely 5 feet tall and weighing less than 100 pounds, she looked younger than her age. And perhaps that is what attracted Alcala to her. He picked her up on Sunset Boulevard and drove her into the Hollywood Hills. There, he brutally assaulted her, beat her on the head with a rock, and finally strangled her to death. Then he posed her in a kneeling position. Her body was discovered by a film crew in November of 1977. And just a month later, Georgia Wickstead, a 27-year-old nurse, was discovered dead in her Malibu apartment. The previous evening, she'd driven a co-worker home from a bar. When she didn't show up for work the next day, the co-worker reported her missing. Police arrived at her apartment to find signs of forced entry and found Wickstead posed naked on her bedroom floor. She'd been strangled, and her skull had been caved in with a hammer. She'd also had been assaulted, and her genitals had been mutilated. And then 6 months later, Alcala struck again. In June of 1978, Charlotte Lamb, an attractive 32-year-old legal secretary from Santa Monica, was found dead in the laundry room of her apartment building. There were many similarities to the Wickstead homicide. Liam had been assaulted, beaten, and strangled, and was posed with her hands behind her back. Alcala had been interviewed by the Hillside Strangler Task Force just weeks before he assaulted and killed Charlotte Lamb. The questioning was routine. They were interviewing all known sex offenders in the area. And while Alcala wasn't considered a suspect, the officers did find him in possession of marijuana. And he served a short prison term on the drug charges. He was out in time to make his appearance on the dating game in September. In February of 1979, Rodney Alcala picked up a 15-year-old hitchhiker in Riverside County. He took her to his apartment where, according to his later confession, they had consensual sex. The next morning, he drove her into the mountains where he took some nude photos of her. But something made the girl panic, and as she tried to get away from him, he beat and then assaulted her. Inexplicably, given Alcala's MO, he later drove the girls back to Riverside and released her. She immediately reported the abduction and her assault to the police. Alcala was arrested and then bailed by his mother. Awaiting trial on the assault charge, Alcala committed 2 more murders in June of 1979. The first was Jill Parenteau, last seen alive when she left work early to attend a baseball game. When she didn't show up the next day, friends reported her missing. Police check-in on her apartment found the 21-year-old dead on her bathroom floor. She'd been sexually assaulted, beaten, and strangled. Her assailant had posed her body suggestively, using pillows to prop her up. There were signs of forced entry into the apartment, and her killer had cut himself climbing in through a window. Blood evidence matching only 3% of the population did not finger Rodney Alcala as the perpetrator, but it didn't rule him out either. And then just weeks later, on June 20th, 1979, 12-year-old Robin Samso from Huntington Beach disappeared on her way to a ballet class earlier in the day. Robin's neighbor, Jackie Young, had chased the man away who'd been pestering Robin and a friend, trying to get them to pose for him in their swimsuits. Now, several other teenage girls testified that a man had approached them on the beach that day asking them to pose for photographs. They later identified the man as Rodney Alcala. And then 12 days after Robin Samso disappeared, William Pokipi, a park ranger, found her decomposing remains in the foothills of the Sierra Madres. A kitchen knife was found nearby, but the level of decomposition meant it was impossible to determine whether she'd been sexually assaulted. Now, with positive identification from several witnesses, putting Alcala at the scene of Robin Samso's abduction, police moved in and arrested him on July 24th of 1979. They then obtained a search warrant for his mother's house, where they found a receipt for a storage locker in Seattle. And inside the locker, they found hundreds of photographs of young girls. They also found a pair of gold earrings allegedly worn by Robin Samso on the day she went missing. A second pair of earrings would be traced to Charlotte Lamb and will later prove to carry traces of her DNA. Now, with the evidence from the storage locker and the testimony of several eyewitnesses, prosecutors brought Alcala to trial for the murder of Robin Samso. Alcala claimed an alibi, one that was backed by his mother and 2 sisters. He claimed that he was at Knott's Berry Farm that day, applying for a job as a photographer. Phone records were produced to prove that a call had been made from that location to his mother's house. But there was no proof that he'd been the one who had actually made the call. And anyway, the jury wasn't buying it. They found Alcala guilty of first-degree murder and recommended the death penalty. However, the story doesn't end here, because Alcala's conviction was overturned by the California Supreme Court in 1994. He was then retried for the same offense, again found guilty and again overturned, but this time by the U.S. Supreme Court of Appeals. Alcala must have had thought he had charmed life. Must have thought, like many serial killers, that he was invisible. However, unfortunately for Alcala, his early crimes were about to catch up with him. At the time that he committed the Barcombe, Wickstead, Lamb, and Parental murders, DNA technology was not yet available as an investigative tool. Now though, investigators were able to process trace elements collected from those scenes and link them to Rodney Alcala. And in 2010, he went on trial for the murders of Robin Samso, Jill Barcombe, George Wickstead, Charlotte Lamb, and Jill Parental. 5. Alcala conducted his own defense and produced some bizarre evidence, including a video of his appearance on the dating game and an extract from Arlo Guthrie's song Alice's Restaurant Massacre. He also urged jurors not to seek the death penalty. "You know, I'll fight it," he said. "A life sentence will probably be easiest for everyone." The jury disagreed, and on February 25, 2010, he was found guilty on 5 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death for each of the crimes. He remains a person of interest in the murders of Ellen Hoover and Cornelia Crowley in New York in the 1970s. And police in several states, including Washington and New Hampshire, are looking to unsolved homicides committed there, which bear Rodney Alcala's unique signature. So that concludes today's story. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone who joined me on this journey through this dark story. Hitting the like and subscribe button not only encourages me, but also helps spread the word about my content. So if you're intrigued by psychological layers, I invite you to stay as I'm going to delve a little deeper into my own professional opinion of the themes that have emerged from this story. So in the early chapters of Alcala's life, a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, emerged, following a nervous breakdown during his tenure in the Army. Now ASPD, a condition marked by a profound disregard for others, an absence of empathy, and a penchant for deceit and impulsivity. That lays the foundation for Alcala's future transgressions. The diagnosis is a pivotal piece of this puzzle. It sheds light on his subsequent behaviors, his manipulative charm, his remorselessness, all of which are hallmarks of this disorder. Now Alcala's charm was not just evident, it was weaponized. His appearance on the dating game showcased this deceitful allure, a facade that enabled him to prey undetected. This ability to manipulate and charm is a trait alarmingly common among serial killers. It serves as their cloak, hiding their monstrous intentions in plain sight. Now the story gets darker with the early departure of Alcala's father. He's a catalyst for family instability and emotional turmoil. While not every story of family disruption ends in tragedy, in Alcala's narrative, this instability was a significant chapter that, when combined with other risk factors, paved a path toward antisocial behavior. We observe an escalation in Alcala's violent tendencies, from the assault of a young girl to the cold-blooded murder of multiple victims. This progression mirrors a disturbing pattern common among serial killers, where early aggressive acts foreshadow a descent into more heinous crimes. And it gets even darker as we explore the element of sexual sadism in Alcala's crimes. The heinous nature of his acts, characterized by sexual assaults, mutilation, and a grotesque display of power. It highlights a deeply ingrained sadistic pleasure derived from the suffering of others. This, coupled with the post-mortem posing of his victims, it underscores a disturbing need for dominance and control. In an airy twist, Alcala's passion for photography becomes a sinister tool in his arsenal. It served not just as a hobby, but as a means to ensnare his victims, a macabre extension of his desire for control, allowing him to document and relive his gruesome acts. In closing, the story of Rodney Alcala is a grim exploration of the nexus between psychological disorder, environmental catalyst, and the emergence of a serial killer. His story exemplifies how a confluence of factors, manipulative prowess, a diagnosed disorder, and a turbulent early life can forge a path of devastation. It beckons us to understand these indicators, not just to unravel the enigma of Alcala's crimes, but to prevent future tragedies by identifying and intervening in the lives of those at risk of following in his shadowy footsteps. That concludes everything for us today. Again, thank you for joining me, and please hit that like and subscribe button. Until our next episode, thank you and keep it saucy.